Isn't it good? Suddenly they're not behind net zero. They can actually speak their mind, those Liberals. We'll stay with this issue because the cost of living crisis, exemplified by your power bills going up some 37% over the past year, is just one symptom of an economy in decline. If you want to know why your bills are rising faster than your wages, why your kids can't afford to buy a house or start a family, and while everyone's mood seems to be getting worse, it's because as a country, we're getting poorer, not richer. Let's not forget those OECD figures released just prior to this year's election, figures that the coalition inexplicably hardly used as campaign ammunition. And they are that over the past 3 years of Labor government rule, Australia has suffered an 8% drop in real disposable income. And it's government that wears a fair share of the blame here. Not just the Albanese government in Canberra, but state governments too. Last week, Tasmania's credit rating was downgraded from AA2 to AA3. Tasmania has a Liberal government, but it's in minority, and it has to cobble together a parliamentary majority with the usual vote-buying deficit sprees and spending money it doesn't have on the new AFL stadium in Hobart, for which the business case is negligible. But by far the worst performing state in the country is Victoria. And with the highest taxes of any state and the highest debt, worse debt than New South Wales, Queensland and Tasmania combined, Victoria looks likely to be downgraded again due to the appalling fiscal mismanagement of the Andrews-Allen Labor governments. But the basic problem, as the former editor of the Australian Financial Review, now head of the Centre for Independent Studies, Michael Stutchbury, wrote on the weekend, is that Australia's productivity is stuck at 2016 levels. In other words, Australians are no more productive as individuals today than we were a decade back. Now, I'll speak with Stutchbury a little later in the show, but he's absolutely right to pinpoint productivity as a huge problem. So why is it so stagnant? Well, essentially, there are 3 reasons here. First, because we're bringing in too many migrants who are, on average, a drag on our productivity because they work in unskilled jobs like cleaning and caring and driving. Second, because the Albanese government's passed laws making it much easier for unions to get involved in the running of business, something that since the eras of Hawke and Howard, so almost 50 years now, we had been moving against. And third, because of insane energy policies that are killing the cheap electricity we used to have as our main comparative economic advantage, particularly in manufacturing. Today, in a special feature, the Australian newspaper covered the real-world impact of our skyrocketing power prices. And with no end in sight, it was a sorry read, particularly in relation to the impact it's having on small business. Story after story of owners either cutting back their operations or not expanding them because the power they need is just too expensive. And as long as Green left Labor governments stay in office, it will get worse because the so-called climate crisis is an article of faith for Labor. So that means more coal-fired power stations will be set to close, even though, as we were warned today by the energy market operator, the closure of the giant Eraring power station in New South Wales, now scheduled for 2027, would cause major grid instability. Climate crusader, the part-time Minister Chris Bowen, well, he signed us up to another UN declaration, this one on the total elimination of fossil fuels, even though there's some 60% of our electricity and this is gas and coal, 2 of our 3 biggest exports. Labor is still pursuing its 82% renewable power pipe dream, even though the rollout is way behind schedule. And what's also killing business in this country, as I said, is the power of the unions and weak politicians who let them have their way, even if it goes against the national interest. And that's because Labor's election war chest comes from the unions. And it's still the unions who dominate the pre-selection system. Just today, for instance, it was revealed that the Fair Work Commission has rubber-stamped 99.95% of union applications to enter a private sector workplace. And that's never going to change under Labor. With more talk today that the Reserve Bank will look to lift rates because of last week's inflation spike, if you think things aren't good now, Well, believe me, they're likely to get a whole lot worse.